What's up, guys? Last night we got an absolute nuke from GGG on Path of Exile 2. An insane, insane list of patch notes. I know we were all desperately waiting. I was chilling in some different chats, watching some different streams when the patch notes finally hit. And yeah, a lot of the reactions were pretty funny because, man, GGG did not hold back. They absolutely nerfed everything in the game. It was kind of expected that they were going to nerf a lot of stuff, but I don't think people were quite prepared for how much they were going to nerf and how much they're going to change. We still don't have all the information. Even with this incredibly long patch notes, I think it was around 50 pages, 80,000 characters. We're still not seeing the actual skill gems themselves, the gem changes. So once the actual patch is released and we get the data mined info on all the new support gems and all of the new skill gem changes, we'll be able to see what gems maybe survived a little bit more than they appear from the notes. As of right now, it's looking like minions got hit, but not too hard. Lightning arrow, Fub Gun is saying is still quite viable even into the end game, but if the gem changes come out and the damage is nerfed by 80%, it could be different. I was hearing Zizarin saying that he's expecting basically all the flat damage or all the damage on almost all skill gems to drop by about 60 to 80%, he's saying. So I don't know about all that, but I'm going to quickly go through all the patch notes for you guys. I've gone through and I've basically shortened a lot of the notes and then also deleted ones that I don't think are necessary. If you want the full patch notes, I'll have that link in the description. But for now, I'm just going to go through and kind of highlight the new changes that are in the patch for 0.2.0 tomorrow. So, the Dawn of the Hunt League. So we're starting fresh in a new economy with Dawn of the Hunt. All of your old characters from the early access launch are still present, but a free passive tree refund has been granted due to the changes. Highly encourage you to join the new leagues to fully take in the changes we made with the 0.2.0 update. If you're a new player watching this and you're wondering, should I hop in to the new leagues? Should I just play on my old character? I would highly advise you to just hop in the new league, start a new character. You're going to be able to progress through the game with all these changes made and really feel what the new game is like. If you just hop in on an old character and kind of redo your tree, you're not going to be able to see what those changes are like fully. You will feel it on your build, but yeah, I'd highly recommend jumping in. And they're only doing that for this first kind of league because there isn't really any specific league mechanics for it. So next update in 0.3.0, I would expect that they're not going to be making the changes in standard and forcing everyone who wants to play the new fun stuff, or with all these nerfs, I don't know how fun it'll be, but the new stuff in the new leagues. So standard, hardcore, and SSF variations of both are going to be available. And let's go. So, new content and features. They added the Huntress and the Amazon Ritualist Ascendancy, the Smith of Katava Ascendancy for Warrior, the Tactician Ascendancy for Mercenary, and the Lich Ascendancy for Witch. I'm heavily leaning towards Lich right now. Either that or I'll just, do a Huntress just to try the new thing like everyone else. 25 new skills, primarily spear, 100 new supports, 2 new items classes, spears and bucklers. 100 new unique gems, 8 new endgame maps, 4 unique strong boxes. They introduced 12 rogue exiles. Each one has their own skills. If you were watching the reveal, or if you weren't and you missed that, rogue exiles are a Path of Exile 1 mechanic, basically like clones of mini players that will try and shoot you and kill you. And these exiles also use unique items that they will drop when you kill them. So that's a bit of a different change. In Path of Exile 1, they would just drop a full set of gear. But in this game, they're actually going to be wearing unique items. So those unique items could affect. You could run into one with a headhunter. And then if you kill them, they will drop that item on the ground. So pretty cool change I'm excited about. They introduced the Asmirian Wisps. Spirits found throughout the campaign and endgame. The wisps flee. Any monsters that come into contact with them are more powerful and more rewarding. And they'll get away and return to the woods if you let them get away too much. Added 15 new socketable items with new modifiers that you can craft onto your items. Introduced the Twilight Reliquary key. Only special keys dropped by bosses can give you a foil version of that item. For example, if you want a foil Hoa, you'll need to drop a Zest Reliquary key and then use that, and then you have a chance to get Hoa, but also from the pool of all the other uniques. So a shiny Hoa is going to be a little hard to get. Same as the other boss-specific uniques. Essences can now have Val Orbs applied to them. This means the essences in maps to corrupt the essences with a range of unpredictable outcomes. Greater essences can be upgraded to 4 new corrupted essences. Improved sound art and stuff. Endgame changes. Areas of corruption on the Atlas now have central corrupted nexus, areas leading to nexus, slain enemies. The areas leading to the nexus, there are slain enemies that amalgamate into powerful monsters. So basically in the maps, as you get closer to that central nexus area, enemies are going to be kind of growing stronger when you kill them, and that's going to spread to the monsters around them and make them more powerful and more rewarding. Upon reaching the Nexus, you will begin the task of cleansing the source of corruption. Complete this task and receive a crystalline shard that you can use to obtain Atlas passive skill points. So changing the kind of quest lines that we do to get all our Atlas passive points from in 0.1, which was just complete, 10 tier 1 maps, complete 10 tier 2 maps, complete 10 tier 3 maps, which I know a lot of people did not enjoy, so that's a nice change. Additional corruption monster factions have also been introduced. A boss for each faction has been added. These appear in the corrupted nexus. Corruption monsters have had their visuals and animations improved and their skills rebalanced. Corruption areas no longer implicitly have +1 to area level, but are much more likely to have additional modifiers, such as new corrupted modifiers. Cleansing a nexus will cause surrounding maps to become cleansed, which will have their own set of monsters and rewards, including fracturing orbs. Massive addition to the game. Absolutely love that we've got fracturing orbs. At least 4 modifiers to open a corrupted nexus map, and they're talking about on the waystone that you insert in that map. You can now respawn and return to the map if you die. Endgame, you get up to 6 total maps per map. Wait. Endgame, sorry. You can now respawn and return to a map if you die. In the endgame, you get up to 6 total attempts per map, basically portals. And as you add more modifiers, the respawns goes down. So once you're at, I think 6, or I think it's only, once you're at 6 modifiers, you basically only have 1 portal like before. But you can now, you'll be able to enter and exit your maps as much as you like, as long as you haven't died. So you can keep going in and out, in and out. You don't have to worry about using up portals if you're making trades or whatever it is. In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times. So if you're in a map with 6 portals, everyone will be able to have 6 respawns, basically. Once you start a boss fight, map owner required to collectively respawn the entire party. That was to avoid people glitching or glitching out the map and the specific encounters in the map. If you rush the map boss and die, you will respawn at the map boss with only the map boss in the map. That's another thing to avoid people kind of glitching out the map. Number of towers on the Atlas has been reduced drastically, but each one is now more powerful. Tablets add twice as many mechanics to towers. Using higher tier waystones in towers increases the number of mechanics by tier 15. The bonus is double. Single tablet is now double. Single tablet to now add 4 times as many things as before. Tower maps can now spawn with all extra content mechanics, including bosses. The number of maps affected by tablets has been doubled. Now scales based on map tier. Killing rare monsters required for a map completion no longer has a chance to grant monster modifiers to the remaining rare monsters, but they did increase the chance for rare monsters to have 3 or 4 modifiers in maps because of this. A checkpoint now spawns when the last available optional content has been completed. Extra content now start spawning further away from the start. So this is things like expedition, breach, that stuff. You're gonna have to do a few more maps and get away from the starting location in order to start seeing this content. Waystones can no longer drop at a lower tier than current map. Waystones dropped by final map bosses will always be one tier higher. So this is, I mean, Waystone, like getting a bunch of Waystones is going to be so easy in 0.2.0, I feel. Final map bosses and the final naturally occurring rare monsters in tier 1 maps have 100% chance to drop a Waystone. Remove chances for Waystones to drop at a tier higher from the Atlas and lowered Waystone quantity available based on the changes made that I just said. Map bosses have a chance to drop a Waystone of the current tier or higher, replaced by increased quantity of Waystones dropped by map bosses on the Atlas passive tree. Doriani now has up to 10 Waystones for sale, either tier 1 all the way up to one tier below the highest tier that you've completed. The Waystone chance granted by Waystone suffix modifiers has been reduced. The first 5 different unique maps you complete now each grant 2 Atlas passive skill points for a total of 10. Maps have been adjusted to account for Asmirian spirits. The Untainted Paradise now has 200 to 400% increased experience gained. Previously was only 150 to 300, so that's nice. Recombination added to Expedition, very big. Lots of tablet changes. Rare monsters get an additional mod. Modifier is gone from Simulacrum. Multiple quests that led to the Arbiter of Ash is now a single quest. Perfect, very nice. All bosses that are affected by difficulty and Simulacrum can now drop all their specific unique items at any difficulty, but lower chances at lower difficulties. Pinnacle boss content unlocked twice as fast. Players no longer lose experience from dying in Pinnacle boss areas. Move the location of the stash in Simulacrum to avoid misclicking and starting the encounter. Reduce the power of notables on the league-specific Atlas tree. Delirium encounters and maps now reward 1 Simulacrum splinter each time a reward type is filled. Simulacrum splinters can now be obtained in all map tiers. Base number of monsters spawned in Delirium reduced, but the number from touching those fractured mirrors is greatly increased. Reduce the intensity of the fog. The number of monsters spawned from breaches has been reduced. A higher percentage of the total monsters, though, in that a breach will spawn, now spawn earlier in the breach to make up for that. Reduce the number of small breach chests found. Breach splinters can now be obtained from all map tiers. Breach and Delirium encounters are now considered complete on start. So as soon as you run through the thing. Strong boxes now spawn slightly more packs. Omens now always appear as ritual rewards with a small chance for an additional omen. Logging out while in map will now place you back inside the map. Atlas passive tree changes. Like I said before, for the full thing, make sure you're going to the filters or make sure you're going to the forum on GGG or on pathofexile.com to see exactly what GGG has changed. But a couple noted things were the Asmirian spirits and rogue exiles are now on the passive tree, and there's more notable passives and rework some existing ones to make available choices more interesting. So if you're looking for specifics, check the patch notes. General improvements, they reforging benches in town are repositioned to better spots. Strong boxes can now appear in certain Act 1 areas. Added a stash to Treasure Room and Trial of Chaos. Many fire skills now visually burn the grass. Improve the performance of summoning and reviving minions. Really hope that means they're getting less stuck on doorways. Improved preventing movement skills, skipping elevators and preventing encounters from functioning correctly in Trial of Chaos. Jumps performed using Escape Shot and Toxic Growth now allow you to jump over enemies in small amounts of terrain. Very nice. I was getting stuck on pebbles while using Escape Shot. Decay debuff from Decaying Hex support has now appropriate visual effects and displays below enemy's life bar. Grenade skills now have small amount of random variation in travel distance when firing multiple grenades at once. Firebolt now uses the same animation as freezing shards instead of generic projectile spell animation. And they updated the 3D art of the stash and guild stash. Player changes. Characters now required to be at least level 25 to enter Cruel and level 50 to enter the endgame. I don't think anyone's upset about that. Player's base attack speed while unarmed is now 1.4 attacks per second. Previously 1.2. So with the changes to concoctions now requiring you to be unarmed, you know, that does give you a little bit more DPS, which is nice. A little bit better feeling when you're throwing the concoction out. Freeze now builds up roughly 48% slower on enemies. Player base ailment threshold now half max life. It was previously all your max life. Presence base radius is now 4 meters, previously 6 meters. So that's for skills that say like enemies in your presence are weakened or whatever. So bit of a pretty big nerf there. 33% nerf to that. Monster mods stolen from rare monsters have had the effect they provide adjusted to be more appropriate. Cruel Candlemass now provides 5% increased life instead of 8%. God, they really hate us. Worn Sandals Trial of the Sekima's Affliction now grants 30% less movement speed if you've been hit recently, previously 25. Blocking a hit by raising a shield or parrying now gives a chance to avoid the accumulating heavy stun buildup, equal to the chance to avoid the hit. Or dodge the hit, I guess, or block the hit, I mean, in that case. Unified stun mechanics and terminology. Stagger from blocking too much with a shield raised is now heavy stun. Players are still unable to be heavy stunned unless a mechanic specifically states otherwise. Mods to curse effect have been changed to instead apply to curse magnitude. Player created objects no longer have a monster power value. Ice crystals can no longer apply on kill effects. Players have 50% more light stun threshold per time stunned in past 4 seconds. It used to be 25% in 6 seconds. Your heavy stun bar doesn't start emptying until the heavy stun animation is finished. Heavy stun duration on players now 3 seconds, previously 1 second. Wait, god damn. Players cannot 3 seconds. God damn, I'm getting Morgana queued for in Path of Exile now. God damn. Players cannot block or evade hits while heavy stunned. Critical weakness stacks now track duration individually rather than refreshing the duration of all stacks. Pinned targets can't evade. Pinning target now causes them to be light stunned. The base duration for charges is now 15 seconds. Previously was 20. 15 seconds is still a lot for charges, and I believe that's what it is in PoE. So I'm not mad about that, to be honest. Fully broken armor now causes enemies to take 20% increased fizz damage from hits. Nice. People might be using full, armor break now. Newly summoned revivable minions now spawn with their skills on cooldown. Ancestrally boosted slam now has 30% more damage, 20% more AoE. It used to be only 20% damage, 20% AoE. Persistent minions granted by Ascendancy now automatically summoned when you allocate the passive for the first time. Players and monsters now only count as moving while moving, rather than for the whole length of animations that have some movement during some part of them. Setting a stat to a specific value, such as chaos inoculation, now occurs before conversion is applied to that stat. So a lot of people were using the Ghost Wraith body armor to get a lot of extra ES. That will now scale off the number 1 rather than your life before the CI conversion. Ascendancy changes. Here we go. So Titan, surprising strength, 50% more damage against heavy stunned enemies, previously 40. Earthbreaker, 25% chance for slam skills you use yourself to cause aftershocks, previously 20. Warbringer. This one actually looks like, I don't know, it might be crazy, but it could be a semi-decent minion ascendancy. Might be getting some beefy minion people out there. Warcaller's Bellow Ascendance passive now causes war cries to explode corpses, dealing 25% of their life as fizz damage. This allows for war cry AoE to scale the corpse explosion radius. The Turtle Charm Ascendancy passive now has 25% less block chance, previously 35. The Encase and Jade skill now consumes all stacks of Jade to grant guard based off maximum life for each Jade stack consumed. Ancestral Spirit skill, granted by the Answered Call Ascendancy, now has minions from the skill have 1% increased accuracy rating per 3 of your decks, and minions from your skill have 1% increased damage per 3 of your strength. So that's where I'm thinking the minions could come in. That seems pretty potent. We'll have to see if anyone's out there making a Warbringer Spectre build, because that could be quite strong. Ancestral Jade Hulk now 300% more stun buildup, previously 200. The War Caller's Bellow buff from Ancestral Warhorn now grants 10 rage on hit, previously 5%. 20% increased skill speed, previously 10%. Oh, previously 5. Sorry, it's not percent. So it previously granted 5 rage on hit, now it grants 10. Power Shell Aura from the Ancestral Spirit Turtle now grants allies 80% increased defenses, up from 50%. That's pretty nice. And 40% increased block chance instead of 25. So buff there. Gemling Legionnaire. Stat stacking is gone, guys. I'm just going to let you know right now. The Enhanced Effectiveness Ascendancy now grants 20% less attributes. The Integrated Efficiency Ascendancy has swapped positions with Gem Studded and no longer provides +3 skill slots. Instead, it now causes skills to gain 20% increased damage per socketed red support gem. Skills gain 6% increased skill speed per socketed green support gem, and skills gain 20% increased critical hit chance per socketed blue support gem. So really leaning into what I think their original version was for Gemling Legionnaire, which is playing off the color of the gems that you're using. I think that's actually a pretty cool change. The Implanted Ascendancy passive skill no longer provides +1 to level of all skills. Instead, now provides a choice between +2 to level of all skills with a strength, dex, or int requirement, respectively. So if you got a bunch of skills that require strength, you can pick, I want +2 to all those strength skills. So that's pretty nice. Witch Hunter. The No Mercy Ascendancy passive skill now deals 40% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration, previously 30%. The Obsessive Rituals Ascendancy passive now provides 35% less armor and evasion rating, previously 50%. The Sorcery Ward Barrier recharge delay has also been reduced by 2 seconds at all gem levels. Deadeye, the only big change was the Thrilling Chase Ascendancy skill now provides when you consume frenzy charges, you count as having consumed twice as many. It was previously a 50% chance, so now 100% of the time, you will always count as consuming twice as many frenzy charges. That's pretty nice. I'm thinking Spiral Volley, Deadeye, might be a login. Pathfinder. Running Assault Ascendancy passive skill now grants 50% less movement speed while from using skills. So this means, or movement speed penalty from using skills while moving. So basically, instead of being slowed down a lot, you'll be slowed down half as less. Connected Chemistry Ascendancy skill has been removed, which is kind of scary because that was a lot of how you, it was a skill that allowed you to continually get charges. I'll just quickly show it to you guys here. This one here, Connected Chemistry. So that's 50% more flash charges gained. Without being able to use that early on, that's going to make the switch to concoctions happen a lot later, I'm pretty sure. So a decent nerf there. They added a new multiple choice practical remedies ascendancy passive skill that provides the ability to allocate Grounding Stick, Dousing Vial, or Thawing Campfire, which each provide immunity to shock, immunity to ignite, or immunity to freeze, respectively. New Sustainable Practices Ascendancy passive skill provides 30% of evasion rating, also grants elemental damage reduction. So that's pretty cool. Pathfinder, interesting changes. Where we see nerfs in one way, we also see a little bit of buff on another side. So Pathfinder's going to be another one to look at. Acolyte of Chayula. Embrace the Darkness Ascendancy skill now provides +8 to maximum darkness per level, previously +5. Ravenous Doubts Ascendancy passive skill no longer provides mana leeches instant. Instead, it now provides Mana Leech recovers based on other damage types as well as physical damage, which not sure why they kind of removed the Mana Leech as instant, because it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like Leech wasn't even too good in PoE 2, but we'll see. Honor lost during the Trial Second Modes is now taken before the Accolade of Chayuta's Darkness. Very good. That's how people were cheesing the Trial. Invoker. Protect me from harm. Ascendancy passive skill now provides 50% less evasion rating. Lead me through grace. Ascendancy passive skill now provides 1 spirit for every 8 energy shield on equipped body armor. It was previously 6. And 1 spirit for every 20 evasion rating on equipped body armor, previously 8. So this is how people were getting tons of spirit on Monk. Scatter them to the winds. Ascendancy passive now deals 40% more damage at all gem levels. Blood Mage. Blood Barb's Ascendancy skill no longer provides 10% of damage gained as extra fizz damage. It now causes bleeding on cursed targets to be aggravated. Between the Cracks Ascendancy passive skill now causes... Oh, it's a new one that causes critical hits to ignore monster armor. That might be actually pretty good. Infernalist. Demon form skill granted by the demonic possession ascendancy skill now has a cooldown of 15 seconds and a maximum demon flame of 10. Seething body ascendancy passive skill now has, while on high eternal flame, you and your allies in your presence gain 50% of damage as fire damage. The grinning immolation ascendancy passive skill now provides 15% more critical damage bonus, up from 30. Pyromaniac Pact now causes 50% of infernal flame to be lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds, and it was previously only 10%. Holy God! 50% lost per second. It was previously 10%. God damn. Holy. The Bringer of Flame Ascendancy passive skill now causes all damage from you and your allies to be in your presence to contribute to Ignite Chance and Magnitude. Instead of providing, while not on low life, Infernal Flame, all damage from you and your allies in your presence contributes to Ignite Chance and Magnitude. The Loyal Hellhound Ascendancy passive no longer causes 20% of damage from hits to be taken from the Hellhound's life before you. Very, very big nerf. I mean, you can still use Hellhound as an exposure kind of application, but it almost seems pointless to take this passive now, but I don't know, we'll see. The Master Darkness Ascendancy passive skill now grants Demon Flame has no maximum. The Small Mana Ascendancy passive skills now provide 3% increased max mana instead of 4. After allocating Pyromancy Pact Ascendancy passive skill, you will now have at least 1 maximum Infernal Flame, even with 100% reduced max mana. Using Blink while in demon form now plays an appropriate animation instead of landing the blink. Chronomancer. The Circular Heartbeat Ascendancy passive has been removed. Rapid River no longer has a prerequisite. Quicksand Hourglass Ascendancy passive skill now grants every 10 seconds gain 50% more cast speed for 5 seconds. Previously 12 seconds gain 50% for 4. So happening a little more often. And it added a new Flood of Echoes Ascendancy passive skill that grants the Unleash skill. Stormweaver. Force of Will Ascendancy passive skill now provides 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 25 mana, up from 15. Scouring Winds Ascendancy now causes exposure you inflict to lower the effective resistance by additional 12%, was previously 20. The Strike Twice Ascendancy notable passive no longer provides 50% less shock duration. Instead, it now provides 25% less magnitude of shock to inflict. And the Small Mana Ascendancy passive skills no longer provide 4% increased mana and now provide 12% increased mana regen. So big nerf there. And that, now we're on to passive skill tree changes. With the addition of the Huntress and other new game mechanics, we've added passive support for these throughout the passive skill tree. There are many new clusters, mostly in the Huntress/Ranger area of the tree, and many existing passive skills have been updated. So they've added blind related clusters, volatility related clusters, ranged and melee related clusters, hazard related clusters, companion related clusters, presence, radius, and aura related clusters, parry related clusters, banner related clusters, bleeding related clusters, thorn related clusters, quiver related cluster. They've added 12 jewel sockets have been removed from the passive skill tree. You know, I saw people mad about that, but I think it was kind of obvious, man. The passive skill tree was absolutely filled with jewel sockets. Like some builds were using 8, 9, 10 jewel sockets per thing, and that was just on the tree. So yeah, we'll see how it affects. You should still be able to get 3 to 4 good jewels in your build without having to spend extra time traveling to get the jewel sockets. The Eldritch Battery Keystone passive skill now has an additional property of doubles mana cost. So really attacking the mana stackers in this nerf. Giant's Blood Keystone now has triple attribute requirement of martial weapons. It was previously only affected axes, maces, and swords, but was described as weapons. So now we know it's martial weapons. Falcon Technique notable. The one that everyone took that scaled attack speed based on dex is now 1% attack speed for 25 dexterity rather than 15 dexterity. Mana Blessing notable. Passive skill no longer has 5% increased max mana. Now provides 20% increased mana. Regeneration rate. Master Fletching notable passive skill now provides 20% increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver. Previously 30%, and the 2 small passive points prior now have 6% rather than 10, and then the after ones, the 2 that were on the side that were 15% each to get you that 80% total bonuses gained from equipped quiver are now 20% increased chance to afflict ailments with projectiles and 15% increased projectile stun buildup. So you're only going to be getting 32% rather than 80%. So big nerf to quiver bonuses. The polymathy support or notable skill now grants 7% increased attributes rather than 10%. Raw mana notable passive skill now provides 8% increased max mana, previously 12. Spaghettification, lots of people were using this. Notable passive skill now grants plus 13 to all attributes instead of 7% increased attributes. So that's a big nerf. It also now provides minus 7% to chaos resistance, which was previously minus 13. So less of a penalty and also less of a bonus. Skill changes. Many skills have had their base damage and or damage per level rebalanced. Most of these changes are not specifically mentioned below as the changes are too widespread. So this is what I was saying early in the video about how we need to wait for the actual skill gems to either be data mined or released, so we can see what the specific changes are and what the math is looking like. Mana cost for all attacks, marks, and war cries has been reduced, most notably at higher gem levels. I know a lot of people were complaining about for a lot of attacks, once you started adding gem levels, a lot of the times you wouldn't even have enough mana. I remember a funny clip of Karn going around of him trying to use Hammer of the Gods with like 12 extra levels on it, and it was like 1200 mana to use one of them. He didn't even have 1200 mana. He had like 700 mana, so he couldn't even use it. So it's nice that they're changing that. Adjusted minion damage and life scaling. General damage and life is the same early game, but lower than before at higher levels, especially past gem level 20. Archmage now causes non-channeling spells to gain 3% of damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 max mana you have at all gem levels. It was previously 5 to 6%. Non-channeling spells cost an additional 6.7 to 6.1% of your max mana at gem levels 14 to 20, was previously only 5.3 to 5. Quality now provides 0 to 10% reduced reservation. Instead of granting non-channeling spells, gain 2% damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 max mana you have. That is, I mean, Archmage was just insane in 0.1, so it was obviously going to get absolutely gutted. and it has been. So, goddamn. All concoctions now have 200% more magnitudes. That goes for the ones that deal damage over time. So, explosive concoction, bleeding concoction, and poison concoction will have 200% more magnitude of the dots that they inflict. Blink is now considered a travel skill. Cast on minion death now only gains energy when persistent minions are killed. Additionally, minions that are created by a very under-leveled minion skill relative to the current area level now grant less energy when killed. So level 20 plus minion skills will incur no penalty in endgame content. Cast on shock now gains 1 energy per power of enemies you shock with hits from skills, previously 2. Combat Frenzy now has gain a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy no more than once every 5.3 to 4.1 seconds at gem levels 8 to 20, and it was previously 2.48 to 1.58. So that is a considerable nerf to Combat Frenzy, too. Concoction skills now require an unarmed weapon set. They no longer deal your base unarmed damage, instead dealing only attack damage specified from the specific skill. And they now consume 5 mana flash charges per use, which was previously 3. So concoctions, man. As someone who loved playing Poison Concoction in 0.1, yeah, really gonna have to see. I'm gonna be testing out concoction skills again, but man, it looks like they got nuked, man. Come on, like, goddamn. Curse skills now apply their curse after 1.5 second delay, previously 1 second. Decompose, the skill granted by the Corpse Wade unique boots, now causes the poison cloud to poison enemies as though dealing chaos damage equal to 10 to 19.5 of the corpse's maximum life. And it was previously 30 to 39.5. So, I mean, those boots were insane. The Corpse Wade boots were just nuts. You could basically just throw 1 poison concoction, start it, and then just walk around and kill everything. So those definitely needed a nerf. Despair now causes cursed enemies to have minus 20% to chaos resistance at gem level 9, scaling up to minus 24% at gem 20. Okay, Detonate Dead now deals physical damage equal to 8.8 to 10.7% of corpse's maximum life, as opposed to 20% at all gem levels. God damn. It also now deals 41 to 61 fire damage at gem level 7, which was previously 28. So it did get nerfed, but it also got a little buff in terms of the flat fire damage it has on it. So it's still overall a nerf, but Detonate Dead might still be viable. Direct Minions now has a 0.5 second cooldown. Flame Wall now causes projectiles which pass through the wall to deal 33 to 48 added fire damage at 20 as opposed to 64 to 91. Flammability now causes cursed enemies to have minus 25% to fire resistance at gem level 20, scaling up to 29%. It used to be 32%, scaling up to minus 36%. Crossbomb now has pulse and explosion radius 2 to 2.7 meters. It was previously 1.7 to 2.4. Frostwall now has cooldown of 5 seconds, previously 3 seconds. Galvanic arrows now converts 60% of fizz damage to lightning damage, previously 40%. So galvanic shards might be, galvanic shards might be the play. You got galvanic shards getting a 20% or a 33% buff, or actually it's a 50%. Yeah, 50% buff, and then you have just crossbows in general getting a damage buff. So crossbows might be a good play here. Gas arrow, gas grenades, and decompose now have a limit of 6 poison clouds. Herald skills with attack hits now properly state their hits cannot be evaded. Herald of Ashes explosion radius is now 1.2 meters, previously 1. Herald of Ashes quality now provides an additional plus 0 to 5% of overkill damage, contributes to base ignite damage. Herald of Ice's explosion radius is now 1.6 meters from 1.8. Herald of Plague now requires a martial weapon, so no more using it with Peaconk. Herald of Thunder's bolt impact radius is now 1.4 meters, previously 1.6. Hex Blast, all you need to know is it got absolutely gutted into oblivion. You can now only detonate curses for which at least 50% of the duration is expired. And you cannot ever explode curses that have an infinite duration. So I don't know what this means. Like, am I just supposed to cast a curse and then sit there for 3 seconds until it's 50% gone and then just X blast? Or like, some of these changes I would love to know, like, how is GGG expecting you to play them? Because surely they would make a change with like an idea of how they want you to play it in mind, but I don't know. Hypothermia now causes cursed enemies to have minus 25% to cold resistance at gem level 7, previously minus 32%, scaling up to minus 29 at gem level 20, previously minus 36. Yeah, so all the curse skills have had their have been nerfed as well. Lightning Conduit now performs a number of extra lightning bolts if it consumes shock from an enemy. These bolts are distributed among targets in the skill area, but can hit the same target multiple times if few enough targets were hit. Lightning Conduit has 20% more damage with hits for 5% shock effect on enemy. Previously 100% more damage. Jesus. Lightning Rod now disappears after being chained to 6 times at all gem levels. Previously 8 to 14 times. Arrows now take 1 second to charge up before releasing a lightning bolt when chained to. Lightning arrows that chain to lightning rod arrows cause the pulse to happen instantly instead of needing. Pain Offerings Aura now grants minions 28 to 58% increased damage at gem levels 5 to 20, rather than 29 to 44% more damage. The Aura also grants minions 22 to 58% increased attack and cast speed, which was previously 30% at all levels. So Pain Offering gets a little bit of a buff. So we're going to see a lot of people using that. I mean, people were already all using it if you were running a minion build, but nice to see something get a buff. Perfect Strike no longer always ignites and now has an attack speed of 35% of base, previously 45%. Quality now provides more ignite chance as opposed to increased magnitude of ignite. Perfect Strike also now deals damage in a wider area closer to the player, making it less likely to miss enemies standing next to the player. We'll see how that affects Angoran's speed runs. Poisonous Concoction now deals base physical damage instead of chaos damage. I have no clue how that's going to affect the damage over time, because right now, man, ailments need a rework, but right now the ailments scale based off of your hit damage, so I don't know. Raging Spirits now has a spirit duration of 5 seconds, previously 4, and a maximum of 2 spirits per spell cast, previously 5. Was there? Oh yeah, improve the performance of spawning very high amounts of raging spirits. If you spawn a large number of spirits at the same time, the spawning of them is now spread out over a short duration. Rain of Arrows landing frequency is now affected by projectile speed modifiers. Rolling Slam has plus 1 second to total attack time. I don't know why they ever did this. It was already an insanely long attack. Like, feels like you're rolling that slam for about 10 minutes. And now it's got to be even longer. All right. Sacrifice now has minions revive 66% more slowly at gem level 14. Previously 37. Scaling to 60% more slowly at level 20. Previously 31%. Skeletal Arsonist Explosive Demise skills deal fire damage equal to 12% of the minion's max life. Previously 15. Spark now fires 4 to 9 projectiles at gem levels 1 to 20, which was previously 6 to 14. And no longer has 19% increased projectile speed. Quality now provides increased prod speed, as opposed to skills fire additional projectiles. Spark, looking pretty bye-bye to Spark for 0.2. Spiral Volley now has 30% more damage per frenzy charge, previously 20%. So that's a main reason why I was thinking maybe Spiral Volley might be a play. You know, Deadeye's still looking pretty good. You 100% of the time count is consuming double your frenzy charges, and then you have Spiral Volley getting a 50% buff in damage. to per frenzy charge. So yeah, I don't know. Could be good. Sunder now has +1 second to total attack time. Why? Why? Just why? Stampede quality now provides 0 to 20% chance to cause an aftershock. Stormblast bolts no longer have 30% less reload speed. Stormcaller arrows bolt now has 500% more chance to shock, previously 800. Tempest Bell impact now deals 146 to 490% of attack damage, as opposed to 145 to 316. Now requires a 10-hit combo to use. It was previously a 4. So it's going to take you 2.5 times as longer to be able to use the bell. And then the bell is destroyed after 10 hits at all levels, as opposed to 10 to 19. Quality now causes the bell to be destroyed after plus. Okay. So it'll be 12 hits as opposed to 19 at the top. Tempest Bell Shockwave no longer deals 30% more damage per elemental ailment inflicted on the bell, or 60% of physical damage converted to the corresponding damage type of each elemental ailment inflicted on the bell. Instead, it now gains 30% of phys damage as extra damage of each type matching an elemental ailment on the bell. It also deals attack damage 60 to 132 as opposed to 96 to 211. Tempest Bell can now only trigger a shockwave every 250 milliseconds. This value is a strict limit, not a cooldown. Tempest Bell's limit on number of bells placed is now shared between different copies of the skill. The on-kill effects of Herald skills can no longer trigger from kills caused by Herald skills. There it is. There it is, boys. Heralds, absolutely dead. 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 Tornado Shot's splitting effect now applies to thrown spears. Volcanic Fissure has a limit of 8 concurrent fissures on the ground, and the aftershocks no longer erupt the other fissures. Wind Dancer now grants 10% more evasion rating per stage at all gem levels. It was previously 15 to 19%. And you gain a stage a little bit quicker. Gale Force now deals 53 to 163 attack damage, as opposed to 40 to 125. So less evasion, but you're dealing a little bit more damage when you do happen to get touched. The discipline and purity auras granted by some scepters now apply to the player wielding the scepter as well as their allies. That's annoying that they weren't before. I didn't know that. Releasing Raise Shield immediately after blocking a skill now performs a shield bash that damages and stuns enemies in front of you, and also dazes them if you're using a tower shield. Support changes. Brutality now causes... This isn't all the support changes, by the way. I did go through and just kind of delete anything that wasn't like a main support that a lot of people used. So be sure, like I said, to check the actual forum to see if there's anything specific to your build or specific to what you're looking for in there. Brutality now causes support skills to deal 25% more phys damage, as opposed to 35. Cannibalism now provides 2% of life on kill instead of 4. Post combat now has 120% cost multiplier instead of 140. Feeding Frenzy and Meat Shield can no longer support minions, which are undamageable. Fist of War now has a cost multiplier of 150, previously 140. Hourglass now causes supported skills to deal 30% more damage, previously 40. Impetus now has 115% cost multiplier, previously 100. Magnified Effect now has 130% cost multiplier, previously 120, and causes support skills to have 30% more AoE, previously 40. Meat Shield support now grants minions from supported skills take 35% less damage instead of granting them 50% more max life. Mobility support now has 25% less movement speed penalty while using supported skills, previously 30%. Potential now causes supported skills to have 40% more chance to critically hit when consuming power charges, previously 30. Scattershot support now has supported skills deal 35% less damage, previously 20%. Ooh, big. I wonder if people are still going to be using Scattershot as much. Spell Echo support can no longer support triggered skills. Spiral Volley now fires directly forward with the first arrow instead of the final arrow. I think that's a good change. Strip Away now causes exposure applied to supported skills to have 20% increased effect, previously 30. And Withering Touch now has a chance to apply Withered based on the amount of chaos damage dealt by the hit. So the higher the hit, the more stacks you're going to be applying. Unique item changes. Lots of stuff in here. I went through and basically only eliminated everything except for meta stuff. So, Against the Darkness, Unique Jewel now has a medium radius. This change does not affect existing items. Modifiers that cause notable passive skills in radius to also grant 2 to 4% increase specific attributes now have values of 2 to 3%. The Against the Darkness Unique Jewel no longer causes small passive skills in radius to also grant 1% increased max life or increased max mana. Instead, they now cause small passives to also grant +8 to max life or +8 to max. Astramentus Unique Amulet now has 50 to 100 to all attributes, previously 80 to 100, so much bigger range on that. Ziri's Disdain Helmet now has 10% of damage taken bypass energy shield, previously 20-25, and 60 to 100 mana instead of previously 40 to 60. So that is the 10% damage taken bypasses is specifically because of the Lich coming. If you don't know, the Ascendancy on the Lich allows you to, as long as you have energy shield, your life can't move. So by taking this, you're basically getting free 10% damage reduction. Choir of the Storm Unique Amulet once again triggers Lightning Bolt. Previously was a greater Lightning Bolt. The Dream Fragments Unique Ring now provides 10% increased max mana as opposed to 20%. Everlasting Gaze now causes you to gain 4 to 6% of max mana as a yes. It was previously 20 to 30%. How that even made it to the game? 30% of your max mana as energy shield from one amulet is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. You now can have either +10 or -10. It was previously just a flat 50, 40 or 60 for mana regen rate, and then 40 to 60 to maximum mana, previously just flat 50. Ghostwraith Unique Armor, I already mentioned it, but it now provides 25% of max life converted to ES. Previously was 50%, and it doesn't work on things like CI now. The Hand of Hoa Gloves, Hand of Wisdom in action. Unique Gloves now has 1 to 10 lightning damage per 20 int. Previously 10. Now provides 1 attack speed per 20 dex. It was previously 3% per 25 dexterity. And the per attribute changes will affect existing items while the Ingenuity Unique Belt no longer has 40 to 80% increased bonuses from equipped rings. It now has 30 to 50. This has actually been changed even further because as they were putting out the patch notes, they released these changed notes afterwards. So as you can see here, the Ingenuity Unique Belt no longer has 40 to 80% reduced increased bonuses gained from equipped rings. It now has 20 to 30% from a left ring and 20 to 30% from equipped right ring. So they roll separately. So you could get a 20% roll on your left ring and a 30% on your right ring, or vice versa, or whatever. Or 21 and 24, whatever it is. It also has +1 to 2 charm slots and -20 to 20% increased charm charges gained, and -10 to 10 reduced charm charges used. Last Flame Unique Relic now has damage taken cannot be absorbed, and absorption effects include Guard, Encased in Jade, and Sorcery Ward. People were cheesing, people were cheesing it in order to get Temporalis. People were cheesing Trial of Sekimas, so nice to see that. It'll be nice to see people doing actual no-hit runs rather than these like fake no-hit runs that people were doing. The shield from Trial of Chaos from the Trial Master boss now has 100% increased effective socketed soul cards, down from 333 to 666. 66 was just insane. I don't know how it launched with that, especially with the rarity cores on it. It was just nuts. Melting Maelstrom unique flask no longer has the property of recover all mana when used. Warrior Invictus unique body armor. So this is from the Arbiter of Ash. This is the Arbiter of Ash body armor. Now generates with 3 random modifiers, and the following modifiers have been removed and can't roll. So 10% rarity per socket, 5% life per socket, 5% mana per socket, or 5% attributes per socket are all gone. Can't roll them anymore. And then these modifiers have been changed. So 6 to 10 spirit per socket is now 6 to 10 instead of just a flat 10. It's 6 to 10% increased global defenses instead of a flat 10, and then 5 to 7% to all Ellie res instead of a flat 10. There's also 7 new random modifiers that they're just going to let people find in the wild. Pillar of the Cage God unique staff now provides 1% increased attack speed per 10 dex and 1% increased AoE per 10 int. Previously were both 2%. You got 2% each. And it also now provides 10% increased weapon damage per 10 strength, which was previously 10% per 5 strength. Queen of the Forest now grants 1% movement speed per 800 evasion rating, previously 500. Man, that's big. That's really big, man. That's Need pretty high evasion in order to use this chest then. Existing versions, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Sandstorm Visage unique helmet now causes enemies in your presence to gain critical weakness once per second for 15 seconds. It was previously 1 second. Temporalis unique body armor now causes skills to have -2 to -1 seconds to cooldown. Used to be -4 to -2. Ventur's Gamble unique ring grants -25 to 25 rarity, down from -40 to 40. Time Lost Jewel modifier that grants notable passive skills increased magnitude of damaging ailments now grants 5 to 10 as opposed to 10 to 20. The Time Lost God damn. Sorry guys. Got a little bit of a cold. Time Lost Jewel modifier that grants notable passive skills increased magnitude of damaging ailments now grants 5 to 10%, down from 10 to 20, and existing items can be re-rolled using a divine orb. Or that's for just everything. Time Lost Jewel modifier that grants notable passive skills faster damage from ailments now grants 2 to 3%, previously 3 to 7. Time Lost Jewel modifier that granted notable passive skills increased energy regeneration is now 4 to 12 from 5 to 15. And the Warcry buff effect can no longer be attained on Time Lost Jewels. Item changes, there are quite a bit. Well, and this is the last thing, guys. We're almost done. And then as far as monster changes, I'm not really going to say much and just leave you guys to check that out. But yeah, item changes. Jeweler's Orbs can now set a skill gem to have the specified number of support gem sockets rather than adding support gem sockets. So I know I was hearing stories of people stuck in SSF where they would find a perfect Jeweler's Orb and then not be able to find a greater Jeweler's Orb. Now, if you find a perfect one, you can just go straight from a 3 link all the way to a 6 link, just one go. You don't need to, use a lesser Jeweler's Orb and then a greater Jeweler's Orb and then a perfect Jeweler's Orb. Great change there. Advanced and expert item bases now have distinctive names. Thank God. I talked about that in my last video. I thought advanced and expert were quite ugly, so that's really nice. Runes now have 3 tiers. Storm Rune has been split, and now there's a lesser Storm Rune, and greater Storm Rune. So it's pretty cool change. Give us some more different runes to play around with and for our builds. Doubled the drop rate of runes. You can no longer reforge 3 runes to obtain a random rune in return, though. So you're only going to be finding them in the wild. Using a Valor on an item no longer causes a modifier with a value of 1 to be reduced to 0. The base damage of all crossbows has been increased. And crossbows also now have 2-handed versions of added damage modifiers in the tree instead of the 1-handed versions that they were using. Increased rarity of items found modifiers on items have been lowered at the top end. So the suffix modifier goes up to 25% at the highest tier. Used to be 30. And the prefix modifier now goes up to 25%. Used to be 32. Golden Charm now grants 15% increased rarity of items found, previously 20%. Breach rings now have the implicit modifier of maximum quality is 40%, previously 50%. Chance for breach rings to drop has been greatly reduced, which is quite annoying. No, especially for SSF, a little annoying. Notable passive skills in the starting areas of each class can no longer be instilled, but you can still get them on unique items like Megalomaniac, which is a jewel. Add in new jewel modifiers that provide similar benefits to passive skills added to the passive skill tree, such as companions having increased life. Jewel and time loss jewel modifiers that provided stats scarcely located on the passive skill tree, such as increased blind effect or damage taken recouped as life, have been adjusted because they've now added these into the tree. Increased effect of auras from your aura skills can no longer roll on jewels or time loss jewels. Fletching jewel and time loss jewel modifiers that provide increased bonuses gained from equipped quivers now have values of 4 to 6 and 2 to 3 respectively. It was previously 5 to 15. 15 is crazy. And 3 to 7%. The jewel modifier that grants increased energy regen now grants 2 to 6 as opposed to 3 to 7. The soul core of Azkappa has 5% increased quantity of gold dropped by slain enemies. Previously 10%. Increased rarity of items found. So they've completely removed the rarity soul core, and now it just gives you extra gold. So I wasn't struggling for gold. I think on a few of my characters I have like, millions of gold, so I wasn't exactly struggling for gold. But we'll see with the changes how gold drops were affected. Corruption modifiers on jewels that provide plus 5 to 10 of a specific attribute now have values of plus 4 to 6 only. Scepters can now only roll up to plus 4 to level of all minion skills as opposed to plus 5. Amulet modifiers that provide 5 to 6, 7 to 8, or 9 to 10% increased max mana now have only 3 to 4, 5 to 6, or 7 to 8. That would be for tier 1, 2, or 3. Belts, gloves, and boots can now only roll up to plus 105 to 124 to max mana. Helmets can only roll 125 to 149 to max mana. Up to. So that would be your tier 1 would be that. That's the new tier 1. Or tier whatever it is. God, I wish they would God, I wish they would revert back to T1 being best. The first 2 tiers of added elemental damage modifiers on weapons had their values lowered. Added lightning damage modifiers on weapons have had their values slightly lowered, and relic modifier that causes the merchant to have additional options now only grants a single additional option as opposed to 2 to 3. So stacking the merchant options in Child of Sekima is going to be a lot harder now. And then the last is just a bunch of monster changes. So it's things like, bosses that need to perform certain actions to progress their fight will now become immune to damage if their life is brought significantly past the point at which the action should be used. This should have no noticeable effect on most players, but will prevent cases where bosses could get semi-permanently crowd controlled and prevent the fight from progressing. Armor on all monsters has been reduced by 30%. Soul Eater got a nerf. Life of the Falling Pinnacle boss has been adjusted. Basically all of them. At difficulty 0, they now have roughly half the life as before, scaling back up to be unchanged at difficulty 4. The life, so all these nerfs, and difficulty 4 is going to be like difficult now. It's going to be tough, which I think is what they want. The following bosses no longer have armor pen. That's some of the pinnacle ones. Is there anything else here? You know, they improved monster behavior, and they also patched on the Dreadnought in the campaign. The guaranteed magic monsters near the eggs of the Dreadnought will no longer respawn when you respawn at a checkpoint if you have killed them already. So no more leveling, getting some extra levels there real quick. Thank you, speedrunners, for revealing that to GGG. You now must open the Halani gates before you can advance the Ascent power quest and being able to travel to Trial of Sekimas. The Earning Passage quest now ends on entering the Adura caravan in Act 2 rather than speaking to Zarka in Vistiri outskirts. Lots of user interface changes that I didn't really... The UI changes, I'll let you guys read through yourself, as well as, you know, lots of cool MTX changes, but not as much as I was hoping. I was really hoping to get a lot more, like, character effects and weapon effects brought in, as well as armor, but they only added a few sets of armor, and they added some finisher effects. Man, I never use finisher effects. I find them too distracting. So I never really use those. Portal effects is nice, I guess. And then they added tons of pets, you know, which is fine. It's, you know, I like having pets as much as the next guy, but you know, I prefer the bigger things. You know, let me bring in my you know, my weapon MTX or my armor MTX or my, you know, my character and my weapon effects, things like that. That's what I want to see a little bit quicker than the pets. So disappointing to not see more MTX brought over with this thing, but you know, they're absolutely busting their asses off right now, working overtime and all that. So I'll take what I can get. You know, I'm not complaining. And then lots of bug fixes as well. So I'm gonna let you guys read through all the bug fixes on your own time if you want. Remember, you can use Control F to search the patch notes if you're looking for things specifically. As you can see, there's just tons of bug, like it's just pages and pages and pages of bug fixes. So I don't want to bore you guys with that. It's already been quite a long video, but yeah, they also changed in the notes a couple of the things. We didn't mention that. I didn't go over that. And modifiers to curse effect have been changed to instead apply to curse magnitude. This means they are additive with any other modifiers to the effect of the debuff on the target. For example, curse magnitude and slow magnitude are now additive with each other for temporal chains. Okay. Oh yeah, and Hex Blast. Originally they nerfed it. Originally they gave it all those nerfs about like, oh, you can't use it on, you know, infinite debuffs or whatever. And also they were going to give it a 17% nerf at all gem levels, but now they've removed that, so it won't be. It's just nerfed mostly. It's not absolutely nuked into the ground. It's just, you know, a few good bombs were detonated on top of it. Still. So man, it's been a long one, but thank you guys for listening. I hope this video is good for you guys. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate you guys watching this far. But yeah, are you guys excited for the new patch? Jonathan was not joking when he said that this was going to be a completely new game on Friday. And you know, I'm still excited to go in. I know this is going to be a lot of changes, it's going to be radically new. I'm excited for now. Now, if I'm getting stun locked and perma frozen in Act 1, I might, you know, change my tune a little, but we'll see what happens. Hope you guys have a good start tomorrow on Friday with the 0.2.0. And yeah, hopefully, you know, I'm confident there's still gonna be lots of fun builds, lots of fun things to do. So yeah, have a good time, guys. See you guys in the next one. Peace.